Okay, this is a super exciting day. We've come to Shock Treatment in Western Sydney to get the suspension dialed on the YZ250. I reckon it's going to be one of the biggest changes we can make to this bike, and I cannot wait. G'day Terry.
Hey Sam, how are you, mate?
Very well, how are
That's
you?
Good. Yeah, good. This is the new beast, eh?
This is it. It's a 2019 YZ250 and a friend of mine's got one of these. You've done some work to it and I rode it and it really did transform the bike.
Yeah, well, look, this is a bike we're very familiar with. They really haven't changed that much since 2006. We've done a lot of development with that and yeah, get them working really nice. No reason we can't do the same with this one.
You hear a lot of people still rave about, you know, the KYB forks and everything on these. What do you generally find is the best fix to get them, you know, a little bit more plusher, a little bit more easy to ride?
Well, these things are already good, like you said, and they're probably the best stock fork on the market at the moment. They can still be enhanced. I mean, one of the biggest problems that these things have is stroke control and that just initial bump compliance. The way they're set up hydraulically is a little out of whack. What we're going to try and do is make that initial feel a bit plusher for you, but be a lot more controlled through the stroke. You won't go through the stroke as far or as quickly, and that makes the bike a lot more stable, and you'll find it'll be a lot more easy to manage, you know, particularly under brakes. What's
the process? The boys will pull the forks out and all that, and then we go for a ride?
No, what we want to do is get you on the bike first, and we want to set the sag so that we've got the correct spring pressure, and it's the spring pressure that actually sets the final geometry of the motorcycle. And so by having that right, we'll actually get the right ride height, and so getting those angles correct is pivotal to your steering performance and also the drive quality. So that swing arm angle, we want that acting on the center of mass, and so if it's a little bit too flat, we have too much sag, we'll actually wheel stand a lot, you know, and if it's too steep, we don't have enough sag, we won't get as much grip from the rear wheel as what we're chasing. So we get that right first, then we head to the track.
It is a science. Well, let's get in there and get into it.
Absolutely.
So Jaden, what's the basic thinking with the sag test?
Sag test, it's going to tell us both if the spring rate's correct for you, how far out it is, too heavy, too soft, too much preload, not enough preload. So it's basically going to give us an indication of if that spring's good or if we need to go harder, need to go softer.
You hear different things, like what do you reckon is the magic number?
As far as sag wise,
yeah,
normal motocross setup will normally run around 100 as a starting point.
Okay, so we've been out for a quick blast, and I have to say it's amazing just how much the sag setup does for the overall balance of your bike. Now the boys have pulled everything off, the bike's stripped back, they're doing their thing, so they'll do all that and then we'll go out for another blast to see the improvements. Okay, so this is the internals of my fork. Jaden, can you explain what we are looking at here?
So basically we've got fork and shock here. So this is your compression valving on your fork. This one affects your actual compression adjuster itself, which we can change. Then you've got your mid valve, which acts as basically a parachute on your compression. So we can change that to make it work different as well. And then we've got your rebound settings here. So we can change any amount of shims, thickness of shims to make the fork and shock work differently in how we want it to work. So if we want to make it slower in its action itself, we can add more shims here. We can make this bigger. The options are kind of endless of what we can do.
Okay.
The shock itself, it's a good shock. The piston's very good. It just needs better settings in it basically. So we're going to change your stock valving on this one. The fork itself, the piston on this, it has really large ports that you can see there, and that because of that the oil flows through too quickly. So what they do to try and stop it from kind of blowing through is they'll add a lot of face shims to hold it up, which makes it feel harsh initially, but then as soon as it does open, it blows through and you lose kind of your bottoming resistance. You can change it a little bit, or you can make it a lot better just revalving it. We can change the sizes of here or add more shims there. What we do for the best setup that you can get is we put the race tech gold valve in, and I don't know if you can see it, it's got the step in here. So we can actually change the size of the port to make it work how we want it. So we can add a shim in here and we can close the port right down, or we can add whatever size shim to make the port whatever size we want. And closing that shim down means we can run heaps less shims and still get what we need. So we can make it a lot better initially, a lot plusher, better bump feel, and then have really good bottoming resistance as well. So you can do it if you want to do it. We always do, that is our top of the line kind of setup, or we can change that standard setup as well to make it work a lot better.
It's fascinating because everyone talks about gold valves, but I've never actually seen the internals of a fork
once
like
you
that.
see it and get explained, it's 100%. Most people go, throw them in. And
Sounds amazing. I'll let you get back to it. Thank
no
you.
worries.
Okay, how'd you go?
Yeah, it's a big improvement straight away. Did you notice anything?
So at the moment I can see that the rear is just a little bit active, so just want to control that a little bit more, and you'll find it's amazing how much the rear will affect the front. So we'll make a quick change here and I'll get you to go again. Here's the thing, like you will, as a rider, will be quite happy to ride to a point where the rear will come off the ground, but you're never ever going to ride to a point where the front mucks up. That little self-preservation bug inside you won't let that happen. So let's make a change in the rear and then we'll get you out again.
The changes Terry makes along the way may seem minor in nature, but they add up to make a huge improvement in the YZ250's behaviour. After playing around with some different spring weights, we arrive at a happy medium, while also making some ergonomic changes, including shortening the bars by 15mm and removing some of the throttle free play from standard. Small changes with tangible results. And Terry, I cannot thank you enough, honestly. You've transformed it, and I think there's more to come. It's just up to me to play catch up. So just so people do know, like, what have you done and what was the thinking behind it?
Okay, the first thing we wanted to do is make sure we had the correct springs for your weight. Okay, so we've changed the rear spring. The front springs were fine. What we've done is change the damping aspects here as well. So with the shock, it's pretty good valve design in there. So we've just tweaked that a little. You've got what we call a piston and shim stacks, and oil gets pushed through both of those, and the shim stack is basically like a leaf spring, and it will bend, and as it bends it'll put a spring force against the oil, and so we tune that to get the right amount of tension for every rider's requirements. The front, the valve is a pretty poor design, so we get rid of the valve and we put in a Racetech G2R valve, possibly the most tunable valve on the market, and it allows us to develop a much softer valve opening pressure so that our small choppy bumps are a lot nicer, and at the same time it builds pressure faster than the standard valve, so it gives us more bottoming resistance as well.
Well, I honestly cannot sing your praises high enough. I mean, I've done this is now the second bike of mine that I've done it with. You know, depending on the weight, your weight, the weight, what the bike's set up for, you can have this suspension stuff done for under $1,000, and it has honestly been way more value than an aftermarket pipe or anything else. I think it's going to be the go-to for me every new bike I get.
Absolutely. Look, if you want to just simply put the biggest grin on your face, get that front wheel as planted as possible. So, you know, have the best rubber on there that you can at the right pressures, and get your forks working as nicely as possible. And one thing that we didn't touch on was the actual bar width. We customized the bar width to get the right ergonomics for you, and so that makes a massive difference. You know, get the ergos right, get the feeling right, everything just works. Yeah,
we're certainly getting there with this bike, and it's becoming more and more enjoyable each step of the process. So stay tuned, new episodes coming up where we're going to touch on even more improvements you can make to Yamaha's YZ250.